What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 52 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we're going to be picking up right where we left off in yesterday's episode, getting a little bit more work done on our corridors. I think we're going up to 7 parts on this now, if I'm not mistaken, which is unbelievable. Never put this much work into any corridor that I've done in the past, but that just goes the scale of this thing. So what we're going to be doing is going up to every single hub, is what I've been calling these, where your straightaway corridors meet your circular corridors, and that's what we're going to be working right now. We're basically going to be making a hub point where the two meet. We can kind of clean this up a little bit so the two sides, they kind of come together in a nice way. We just got our arch we've done straight across, and we're actually going to be moving out this the blocks up top and replacing that with cyan concrete, and then we'll be doing a sea lantern dead in the center. There we go. That looks pretty good. And you want to do that for every single point where your straightaways meet your circles. You want to do that on all four for the top row corridors, and then also for the bottom. We're just going to let this ride out and do it live. This little hub thing that I'm doing here, this is something that's actually only on the Enterprise D. My hub, well, no, I take that back. I have them on the other ships I've done in the past, but not quite like how they've turned out on this one. I did it just a little bit differently. And that's something I will try to do ship to ship. I won't try to just do the same thing. I try to mix it up a little bit. And this is again going into what I was talking about in yesterday's episode and really trying to accentuate the ship's identity, which one of the main things in that is the corridors. You start really to flesh out um, how the ship looked in the corridors, really is going to help sell what ship that you're walking around in. Now, this specific area that we're making isn't necessarily something that we'd seen on Next Generation. But with that being said, it's just a different way of doing it to where I can make the straightaway corridors with the circle corridors come together, and then trying to use the color palette with the cyan in the roof that kind of goes with the coloring that is next gen, as far as the floors and some detail sections in the roof. Because it did have it in some areas, not a lot where it had the cyan, but some areas it did. I'm not going to lie, I've been going back and I might end up making a minor tweak to my corridors, how they're looking now, because while I was at work today, I was just looking at some videos, or not videos, I was looking at some screenshots of the corridors on the Next Generation, and there were some minor things that I noticed that I may have done differently. I don't necessarily want to talk about them too much right now because that may change, but don't be surprised if you see me come back to this at least one more time, and maybe make a minor tweak to them. Because it's something I've been thinking about, because I really want to get these corridors as close as I possibly can to the Next Generation. One of the things that did suck was that this white terracotta that you see that I built here, or I used primarily for the build, it was just ended up being too tan, you know, way too dark, because like the tan on the Enterprise D, it's almost like it's such a faint tan color, it's almost like an off-white. And the white terracotta, it's too strong of a color, and I really noticed it when I built not only my corridors but then also the bridge. So then I just decided to go back and make it and primarily use the white concrete in its place. Let me see, I'm just doing a quick refresher to see what I did below. Make sure that we're doing the same thing on every single hub. So this way everything matches up. You can see that block there I had did not match, so I needed to fix that. and move it one back. And see, just paying attention to what your pattern is, this is where, we just saved ourselves from making a mistake. Another cool thing that we'll be working on today, after we've gotten a little bit of extra detailing done here, we're actually going to be working on our main turbo lift that goes from the saucer section down into the lower hull, which will be pretty cool. Because if I'm not mistaken, from here, um, there may end up being maybe one more episode that we do on the corridors this week. I actually haven't gone ahead and watched what tomorrow's episode is going to be just yet. But I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because at this point, a lot of this build is a blur because I've been working on this thing since February. I'm trying to remember if I went in and I did a little bit more detailing on the corridors, or if I just jumped in and started doing the hull. I might have actually, when it went back after I did the main corridor, or excuse me, the main turbo lift to go from the saucer section down to the lower hull, I might have actually started working on the hull for the top portion of the saucer. But either way, we are pretty much right on the cusp of doing that. And once we get to the point where we get the outside of the saucer filled in, then we're really going to start cooking, because then we're going to start working on not only our interior details, but then also getting the exterior details done too. And there's just going to be a ton of stuff to do. It's kind of crazy that we're already in episode 52, but I haven't even gotten the whole ship built yet. But again, that just goes into the scale of this thing. It's taken some time, to say the least. But the way I look at it is that this is just time well spent. I'd rather take my time and do this right rather than rush through it, because even in some sections, I feel like I've had to backtrack a little bit, but that's not necessarily rushing through it. That's just changing my mind as going through the course of the tutorial. I'll decide that maybe something's not working. Like you can see right here, I'm changing the floor in the middle there to the cyan. We're going to clean up this side and do that straight across with the white terracotta. And swap that out for a sea lantern. Yeah, that looks just a little bit cleaner. Now, those of you that haven't changed your color, and you're waiting for me to do this live so you can get an exact estimate on what exactly I'm changing without me telling you, as I'd mentioned that a few episodes ago, don't worry, we are going to do that, because I do show that in the tutorial. Because a lot of this is just builder lines as far as using the grays and whatnot, and I'll be swapping out the white terracotta as well. And we did the top section, we still need to do this bottom. All right, not looking too bad so far. Not a super long video today. I think we're only at 25 minutes, which isn't too bad. Got enough time to get some stuff done. Yeah, we're starting to look pretty good. And start to get a sense of where we're going to have rooms to work with. Now, bear in mind, right here in the center, this gray row right here is pretty much going to be the outline for the mall. So this whole middle part here is going to be called for. But then you can see where we basically have these four corners here that we're going to have to play with the fill in space. Now, bear in mind, we're also going to have an inner ring of corridors there also. It'll be really cool because this will help us in sectioning out the ship. So I'm not showing this in the video, but I'm going to talk about it. Right now we're on the back end of the saucer, not facing forward or facing backwards. You can see I'm deleting blocks. I'm building off of the bottom row here. So we're on deck 1 of our oval corridor. And we're going to bring this going all the way back. You should have this line here from where we built that up to. And it's going to be following, I think, see the first, second, or third cut here. We're not counting this out. We're just going straight up. You can see from this backbone here, it's 1, 2, 3, and it's the fourth one forward. On that row there, that's where we're going to be building that going straight back. This was a line here that you should have on your ship as well. Pretty much what we're building right now is the backbone for what our ladder is going to be. Now we're going to cut out some stuff here and make some room for our hallway. Now we're going to get rid of some of this access, all the stuff here that basically is going to get in the way of our straightaway corridor that we're about to build here in just a second. Now there is going to be one exception with this main corridor, and where I'm placing this, I'm actually building this as far back as I can, because we can't really go forward, because if we go any further forward, then as we're going down, we're actually going to be building on the outside of the ship. And it actually was a little tricky here at this part of the build to get this done. That's why I was stopping it where I was, just for those of you that were trying to get your placement down. That's why I was calling out those cut lines. So this way you can get your placement exact if you're not quite sure on where to place this at. But one of the things that I was slightly disappointed with, and there just wasn't anything that I can do about it, was that my main turbo lift to go to the saucer section to the lower hull, it actually is only going to go up to the first level of our corridors. I wasn't able to add it to the second level, and some of you might be asking, like, well, why couldn't you do that? And that's because, long story short, it would have been protruding outside of the backbone of the ship. And in order to fix that, I would have had to have completely rebuilt the entire back end of the backbone. And I just decided, I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal. I'll just add a secondary turbo lift to go to decks 1 and 2 right next to the shuttle bays. But believe it or not, I did try. I actually went back like 3 times off camera and tried to figure it out to see if I could add that in, because it's something to this day, while I'm still working on this build, that's still bugging me. Now you can see right now I'm just working on building my hub, which is going to basically be 2 entryway points for your secondary and tertiary shuttle bay. Now you can get a sense of how I came up with a leveling for that. I just went off the first deck of our corridor that we built out. This way there's no staircases or anything, it's all one level. Which is what you want. You want everything to be one level and to be even. Yeah, we're going to have to shave away just a little bit more here. And some of you might be thinking, like, why aren't you getting rid of a little bit more of this axis here on the sides? And that's because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it just yet. I might end up using it for different things. That could very well end up being the back wall for both the secondary and tertiary shuttle bay. All right, and now we're just basically building the same thing that we've been working on the past several episodes, just adding in another layer of our straightaway corridor. Now we're just going to count out again on the 5th row, then we're going to do our cut line. Always want to double check, make sure it's lined up so we're not making mistakes. So far, so good. And let's count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Looking pretty good there. It's going to have double stripes there at the end, but at this point, I'd rather have double than it be off key, or they don't match up. Now we're going to do our top pillars. We'll come back and do our lighting. And this will be cool too, because this hallway here is basically going to be a divider for the 2 corridors as well. Or excuse me, not the 2 corridors, but the 2 shuttle bays. We can use that to our advantage as a way to split it up a little bit. Now dead center going straight back, we do the row of the gray. Okay, now we just have to do the sea lanterns. You can do one side going all the way back, or you just go side to side, you know, whatever works for you. Sometimes I'll mix it up, I'll do one side and I'll go all the way back, and I'll go and do the other side, or I'll just keep going side to side. I like to mix it up a little bit when I'm building. All right, we were looking pretty good. We've got our entry waypoint. So you should have something that looks just like that. See, off this line here, we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On the 8th row, that's where our backbone is. And see, now you can see why I have these lines here and I leave them, because I use them for measurement. And also as a way to gauge to show you guys on where to put your placement too. Now, once we add in more stuff here, I will come back and we'll get rid of this access and like hide it and stuff. But it's definitely good to have that stuff here because it helps you in building. It really does. And I think I made my shuttle bays just a little bit small so you can see I'm going to take off 2 rows on each side. Now this is important. I need to go with a cut. Go with the cut line, so we're going in 1. Now do 1 more. And again, go with the cuts. Take off this row here. Okay. This bottom row, we're going to bring that up just by 1, I think. That looks about right. Although in a little bit, may not do it today, but we will throw flooring in here. We may have to make some slight adjustments to make everything match up, but we're not looking too bad. See, even in the neck, we've got a ton of room here. Now, I will say that going downward, other than the battle bridge, which this ship is going to have a battle bridge, if I didn't mention that in the past, um, the majority, if not all of the neck, is going to be pretty much engineering stuff. And that came largely down to the fact that I wasn't quite sure what else to do with it. I had thought about maybe doing like some cargo areas down underneath it, but then I thought, I'm like, I have such a ton of room on the left and right side of the saucer section. I may just end up using that space for that instead. And that allowed me to build up some rooms inside the interior on the neck and make it look a little bit more grandiose and larger. Because that was one thing, like on the Enterprise D, like when you go into engineering, for example, engineering isn't very big. It's relatively small, and from what I've seen in the blueprints, there's multiple levels on engineering. So that's something that we could take advantage of here and really use some of the space that we have to our advantage rather than putting in rooms that don't make any sense or just random rooms. Might as well blow up engineering a little bit because this is a big ship. So you would think that engineering would be such a vital part of the ship. Um, for that reason, I pretty much made the lower, almost all of the lower section of the ship so far dedicated to it. And you'll see what I mean when we get in more of the tutorial, but it's going to be pretty cool. I think you'll like it because a lot of the rooms that I made, like I said, I made them more grandiose and larger in some of them. So this way, when you walk into them, it's a little bit more of a wow factor rather than it being a relatively conservative room as in comparison to like when I did the Cerritos or also the Disco Era Enterprise. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm really, really looking forward to showing that stuff off. Now, I will say with some of it, I took some liberties because they're just, other than the main engineering, they're really, good luck finding screenshots of what this stuff looks like. Now, you can find blueprints for it, but, try building off of a blueprint. I've talked about this in the past. When you're looking at a blueprint, it's from a top down view and you see a circle with an X going through it. Like, what's that supposed to be? So a lot of this is going to come into creativity and what you can come up with, and then also maybe finding some concept art either from the shows and movies or fan concept art too. I'm definitely not afraid to use fan concept art when I have to because even if I don't directly use it piece for piece, it can give you some inspiration on things to do. You can see there's a reason I'm getting rid of that access underneath our main hallway here because underneath this next row here, that's that next deck down, that's going to be Battle Bridge. You can see I'm counting out the spacing to make sure that each deck matches. So we're counting 3, and then on the 4th row down, that's when we add a deck. Now, I'm going to do this the same way I did the Disco Era Enterprise, the Turbo Lift, where I'm going to facade it out going through every deck. And the reason I'm doing this, whether we actually build out a physical deck or not, is to help to give the impression that it's a fully formed ship, even if we don't have a deck every single level that we're adding a level in the turbo lift. Because technically, when you're going through the turbo lift, you wouldn't see this stuff anyway, just, the room would move. But this was a cool compromise that I thought of that I thought was kind of clever. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen anybody try something like this or replicate it. I think it's a pretty unique way of building out your turbo lifts. You can see here, I'm not really deleting much of those extra blocks there. Really, I'm just putting down that the flooring. That's really only my main concern at this point. Now in the front row, we're going to do a row of white terracotta going all the way up and down because that's going to be our trim. You might be surprised, most of these, I think only one or two levels, like right where we are right now. Well, actually, I take that back. I'm pretty sure this level where we're at right now, I'm pretty certain that this becomes a torpedo room deck, which isn't very large because I just didn't have a lot of room to work with because of the V slant. But you might be surprised with how much of the neck I actually filled in. Almost every single deck that I added um, on the turbo lift ended up being filled in with an actual deck. I think there were maybe I think there was one deck I didn't use actually, if I'm not mistaken. There was either one or two. When we really start getting in the interior, we'll pan back to that. So now what I'm going to be doing on the sides here, I'm going to do my lighting. And the reason I'm doing this is because we don't have enough room to add in lighting on the flooring in each deck. So I thought that a neat way of supplementing that would just have the lighting on the sides, which kind of looks cool. To be honest with you, I don't mind it. That's looking pretty good. Now we are going to continue this down into the lower hall, but we've gotten a decent amount done today. I think that's going to wrap us up, and we'll stop here. But anyway, I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, be sure to drop a comment below. Try to help you out in the comment section if I can, or just say hey. Also, don't forget to tune in Tuesdays through Thursdays for my new Minecraft videos. And yeah, I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And what did you build today in Minecraft? Let me know in the comments section.